Hello, everyone. My name is Russell Romeo, and today I'd like to discuss briefly how we can use certain strategies to improve employee health and well being within an organization. So, occupational psychology is an emerging field within industrial organizational psychology. And within this field of occupational psychology, there is some overall research that shows that safety climate can be affected by employer behavior and well being. And it's important to implement strategies in the organizations to drive an increase in safety and well being for employees so that it will be a positive impact on the organization as a whole, which will eventually drive the success of the organization. There's three methods or techniques that I will discuss today that can be applied to an organization that could lead to a increase in employee safety, health, and well-being. And that would be leadership development, ergonomics, and mindfulness. And finally, I'll be looking at these three methods and this topic overall from a biblical approach and what we have learned from the Bible as a way to guide our way of going about improving employee safety, health, and well-being. So I look at the idea of being your brother's keeper as being a key principle to guide how we look at improving employee safety, health, and well-being as an organization. And this is the idea rooted in Genesis, so right up front in the Bible, and it's intertwined throughout various stories in the Bible, that it is our job as part of God's creation to look out for one another. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that role, and that it is our calling to care for one another, to care for others around us. And it's a charge that is given by God for us to do so. And we can extend that framework not just in our personal circles, but out to the workplace. So, keeping the overall theme of being your brother's keeper and looking out for one another, let's dive into the different methods that one can use to improve employee safety and health being in a workplace. The first method will be leadership development and looking at this from an occupational psychology role. So, according to a study by Kellaway and Barling completed in 2010, they looked at the organizations that had a lack of quality leadership showed negative impacts. And they pointed directly to the higher stress rates among the workforce, which led to higher cardiovascular disease. Increased work-related illnesses and injuries was also common among these organizations that had a quality leadership deficit. And then the unhealthy social behaviors that it led to outside of work. And specifically, they mentioned alcoholism and recreational drug use and how those negative impacts work their way back into the organization due to the lack of quality leadership and keeping the employees in a psychologically safe environment. Now, they looked at leadership development through training, and not just training sessions, but going after the training session and putting those managers who went through that training through a coaching session. So they were able to apply that knowledge. And what they saw with that in the organizations they studied is that they did see a positive impact on the overall well-being of the workers and an improvement in the safety climate. Continuing down the path of leadership development being a key method in increasing employee safety and well-being, an article by Wang et al. In 2022 looked at the lack of resources that managers may experience and leaders may experience with an organization. And they pointed to the lack of creativity as being a driver of negative behaviors and well-being among the workforce. And so they took a step back and looked at psychological safety as a resource to drive creativity and to drive the numbers in the positive directions and reducing employee burnout and the additional pressures that may come with their jobs. And what they identified was that implementing a servant leadership mindset in an organization led to a positive impact on the overall psychological safety of the employees, which drove increased rate of positive well-being and safety among the work group, and it drove creativity and giving them the sense that it is okay to express their creativity, which drove success within the organization as well. And they look at the idea that we need to focus leadership on building that psychological safety among their direct reports. And by doing so, and by training and coaching, similar to the previous study, the work atmosphere improves, the overall climate, more specifically. Burnout rates tend to go down. And again, the employers just seem to be happier, and happier employees, sound and safe employees, do lead to an increased success within the workplace. Another technique an organization can use to increase employee safety and health and well-being is a technique of mindfulness. Mindfulness, broadly defined, is one's self-regulation and awareness of the present moment without having to judge or evaluate the situation, or simply put, living within the moment within their tasks they're doing in the workplace. The study by Liu et al. 2023 showed that low mindfulness among employees can be identified as a contributing factor into increased workplace incidents, low morale, and lower employee well-being measurements. Training is identified as the most commonly applied intervention when implementing mindfulness into the organization, and this is done by training leaders and frontline workers and having mindfulness campaigns. And what the study showed is that if an organization were to implement this will lead to increased detection of risks within their tasks and drive the behavior to respond to those risks in a safe manner. It also showed a better handling of cognitive heavy tasks and difficult job demands when coping with those in their workforce. The last topic I'll discuss today that an organization can use to drive increased employee safety, health, and well-being is using the idea of ergonomics to drive psychological well-being. The authors of this study divided the idea of ergonomics into three categories, and that is physical, organizational, and cognitive. Physical being how the workplace is physically designed, how the tools are designed that the employees will use. The organizational piece would be how the task is supposed to be done, how the design of the task is laid out. Does that drive positive behavior for safety? And then the last piece they looked at was the cognitive, and how do the employees feel about the physical or organizational design or overall ergonomics of the workplace. And what they found out that is if you combine the physical and organizational piece together to the point that the employees feel that the ergonomics is benefiting them, then that led to a better cognitive perspective of ergonomics and safety overall, and drove positive behavior in terms of employee safety. This also increased the well-being of employees, knowing that the workplace is designed to fit them and not the other way around. My overall recommendation would be to focus on leadership development to create a safe and healthier workplace. And not just any leadership development, but really the servant leadership piece of this. And servant leadership, as a reminder, is rooted in the Bible. If we look at Matthew 25 and 26, it was Jesus himself who taught that whoever would be the first among you must be servant of all. The idea here is that it is not a leader's job to serve himself, but really to serve others in his direct reports. And that plays right in line with the Be Your Brother's Keeper that I've been discussing throughout this short video. And if we increase focus on all levels of leadership with an organization, then we'll see that a boost in creativity occurs with this, which leads to overall increased happiness and well-being of employees as they are freely able to express themselves. It will increase the risk tolerance of the organization, knowing that the employees will inherently be mindful and act in a safe manner around the moment of doing those tasks. We'll all be able to build positive relationships among the leaders and their direct reports, which all of this will lead to a happier and safe culture that will be developed within an organization. And the research again points to that being a key driver of success within organizations around the globe. One last note here to remember on this recommendation is mindful intervention is helpful, especially in terms of leadership development. To wrap up this quick discussion on improving safety, health, and well-being in organizations, it's important to remember that employee well-being and safety does have an impact on organizations' climate, which does also have an impact on the ultimate success of an organization. And it's important that organizations use strategies to boost employee safety, health, and well-being, and by doing so will lead to happier employees and healthier employees due to the fact that safe behavior is being promoted and driven by these techniques. Another thing to keep in mind is the idea of being your brother's keeper. That leaders and non-leaders alike have a duty to watch out for each other and to ensure everyone is okay, is healthy, is safe, and is able to express themselves freely in the workplace. And that in itself will drive an increase in well-being and safety climate in organizations. Thank you for your time today, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to briefly discuss the various methods and techniques organizations can use to improve safety, health, and well-being within the workplace.